Welcome back to Ryan Rambles. I'm Ryan and I'm going to ramble about the Penny Arcade Expo this time around, about PAX. And I know this could have just as easily been a video. Actually, that's not true. Part of the reason it's not a video is because it cannot just as easily be a video. That would have taken a lot more work and I wouldn't even be talking to you right now. So what I've done as kind of a make good or a choose your own video adventure, if you will, is that I've dumped a whole bunch of media over the past 14 years with a gap in between that I've been going to PAX, and I'll put that link in the description. It's organized by year. Some of it's a little indecipherable, like many of the clips, video especially, I took with the idea of making a video later. But a strange thing has actually happened. When I go and look at those videos that I ended up editing together and making for those years, I think I only ended up doing one in 2010 and 2014. I almost value the individual clips more, even though, again, they're nothing. It's like just showroom floor. There's no reason. I'm moving the camera because I think I know what I'm doing. But it in some strange way ends up being a truer experience. Anyway, if you see some of those clips, that's why they're like that, but I think they're still kind of fun in some strange way. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of pictures and stuff that I'm going to reference as I talk about this. So have at it. And if you want me to take any of them down because you're in them and I didn't ask your permission, that's perfectly fine. Just let me know. Send me I would imagine, text or message at this point because I must know who you are. But if not, please enjoy. And trust me, it's a much better solution than me actually trying to make an episode of A Game in the Life out of this or something like that. Because boy, am I going to ramble still. So we're in the right spot here. Because I started going to PAX back in 2010, and to just give you an idea of what it was like back then, $35 a day if you got in quickly enough to, and this is before they had, it's a very smooth process now. You get in a queue and they put you in and you buy your tickets, good to go. It's also not selling out since COVID. So back in the day, 2010, it was selling out. So if you were lucky to get in early enough, you could get a 3-day pass, because it was only 3 days back then, for a grand total of $55. Otherwise, you were in fact buying single day passes, which still, came out to 105 or whatever it was. So the reason for that is that price was not a barrier to entry for PAX. That's just how it was. And while I didn't get in on the ground level by any means, it had sold out for the first time the year before in 2009. So it had already been growing and arguably had reached an apex of sorts before I even decided to hop on board. But I wasn't the only one. The 2009 was also the same year they partnered with Reed Pop for the first time. So it was clear they were going somewhere with this, but still, I feel like when I got there, especially based on the price, it was of an era, to be sure, but also an inflection point. And wouldn't you know, I went alone. This was, I can't even remember how I first started hearing about it. I followed games and gaming news, so there was no chance I wouldn't eventually hear about it. I just don't remember where or when I decided I should go to that thing. But to this day, it ends up being one of the best decisions of my life, because it is one of the first times, and this has happened to me maybe 1-2 other times, and maybe I don't list them, but where you go to an event, concert going is probably another one for me, and you're home. I had gone to this thing, this tens of thousands of people thing, alone, and found out that I've never been less alone, So number one, that's what PAX was to me almost immediately, I think, when I got there. And since I had never been to anything of the sort before, I kind of just, this is going to be less surprising to some people. I looked at the schedule of panels because I guess for those of you that don't know, the Penny Arcade Expo is largely a fan event centered around gaming, in that video games, I believe tabletop has also always been a part of it. I know there's PAX Unplugged now, but there's always a large, not compared to probably the actual show floor where all of the video games and developers are, but there has always been a tabletop component to the show that I'm sure people attend for like exclusively. So I knew that was all there. I just looked at all of these panels, which are literally just people talking, and it's developers, it's people in the trenches, you could say. I looked at that big long list of just panels from at least 10 a.m. to probably 6-ish p.m. at the time, and just packed my schedule full of those things. Like anything I thought looked mildly interesting, I was going to it. The floor was almost an afterthought, strangely enough. And because of it, like I came away from these early PAXs with some fandoms that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise, like Giant Bomb, my first exposure. They were already pretty big, obviously innovators in a lot of different spaces, but had never patronized them, and went to one of their panels and kind of took up listening to the podcast from there, which seems a little bit backwards, I guess, given what they had done with podcasts up till that point. But the Only Movie Pod was another. In fact, this was pre-Only Movie Pod days. If you listen to those guys, they're great, Matt and Shahir. This might have been, I don't know that I've ever met Shahir. I've met Matt because I would guess, was the impetus, or one of the impetuses behind the movies and video games panel. And at least twice it happened, and at least once it was me and my two friends only in the audience, but loved it, and went on to, they started up the Only Movie Pod shortly afterwards. In fact, shortly or around the same time that me and my Matt Amberg started up Zero Hit Points and Book Club for Movies. So but yeah, because of this, because of my laser focus on listening to people talk about heady things, I came away with like some of these fandoms that I'm still participating in today. But when I did go to the floor, I did go hard. Let's put it that way. I was showing up to get in line. They had queue rooms back in the day, they called them. And they were these large rooms where they would put a large amount of people in a line of sorts. In fact, I can still hear the enforcers to this day asking me to not sit down and scrunch up the line. But I would show up like 7 a.m. to get in line, to get into the show floor, to wait in line. Oh, the lines. So when I did make it to the floor, I did go hard. And my gosh, 2010 was the year for it, if any. We're talking Fallout New Vegas, Portal 2, Halo Reach, Rock Band 3, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and Duke Nukem Forever, of course. So huge year. And this was actually back in the day when I also kind of went by the moniker Achievement Beard, or was trying to do, this is so ridiculous, even trying to explain it now. I should be having this conversation with my 2010 self, being like, look, we can't explain it. What are you even doing? I just liked achievements, obviously, and thought about doing some sort of a fan site about it, had written up a whole bunch of stuff, had even done, did I host that site anywhere? I can't remember, but the Mac I had at the time had like a website. It was like the part of the iLife suite. I believe there was like a website creation app in there somewhere. And I had this site that, again, I think I figured out how to host it from my laptop, but that's as far as it went. But anyway, spent a lot of time on that thing. And no, I had business cards. I don't think I ever had shirts made. But would you like, what was I doing? What was the end game? I don't know. There was a YouTube channel, which actually you can still go and find. In fact, I logged into it for the first time doing some kind of research for this show. And I mentioned this, in fact, with Adam Parkin when we talked about achievements a bit. My playthrough of the Hannah Montana video game on the Xbox 360, when I logged into that Achievement Beard YouTube channel, has like 10,000 plus views and like all these comments I never responded to. I don't even, very strange. But more importantly, certainly for the content that I did end up producing with purpose, this was the first year I met Matt Amberg. And it was one of those classic meet and greets, meet cute, if you will, when you get to know somebody online, also through A360p. If you go back and listen to that episode with Adam Parkin, and an achievement-focused website, got to know Matt there. And we met for the first time at PAX. I walked up to him waiting in line for a game I cannot remember, with his lovely wife, Beth. Hello, Beth. And I think our interaction lasted all of like 5 minutes, maybe, which there absolutely no reason. I wasn't waiting in line with him, but I'm sure he was in that line for at least an hour, just, hey, how's it going? We've now met, achievement unlocked, I guess. and I took off. So that was another high point of 2010 for sure. At least I'm pretty sure that was 2010, because the only picture you're going to see for 2011 is myself and Matt and Adam Parkin meeting for the first time, all three of us. So somehow that's the only picture I have for 2011. But again, the number one thing I would like to remember I don't remember anything else. Actually, that's not, it is probably true, because I know how important that meetup was, how cool it was to meet those guys, those great friends. But I just don't remember anything else from the show, other than same thing. Woke up early, getting in line, packed with panels, the whole 9 yards. In fact, if you want to get a feel for what that queue room was like, I believe those are pictures of it in the 2012 folder. If you go and look, 2012, I brought like my Canon T2i. So I was like, doing big boy content with a capital C. I wasn't. I just took slightly fancier pictures and found Boba Fett playing Guitar Hero at one point, or Rock Band, I guess it would have been. But 2013 also only has one photo, and I've got to tell the story behind it. In 2013, they were doing this, again, pretty sure it was 2013. They were doing this giveaway, and they always have the PAX, have always had the PAX XP thing. It's where you scan your badge and you can take the app and scan the QR codes around the con, which at this point still it was split up between at least like 4 different buildings. You'd have the actual convention center with the 2 sides across the Sky Bridge where you go to the actual showroom floor. There was the annex where they'd have some stuff sometimes. If Nintendo showed up for whatever reason, I feel like, actually that's not true. If any like kind of third party had their own con-ish thing going on, they would sometimes set up in the annex, or it was always kind of a toss-up, the annex, I guess is what I'm saying. But then there'd be stuff down in the theater, whose name escapes me at this moment. Paramount? Seems too easy. And a Benaroya down the street a ways, which I believe is a music hall, and just had one. And if you include all the hotels, obviously, where they were doing a lot of the panels, there were even more buildings involved. But they'll set up these PAX XP QR codes around, and you'll scan them, and it'll unlock pictures of a puzzle. Well, this year, I don't know if this was separate or together, but it was pretty much, or it was the same type of thing. It was attached to Mountain Dew. And the idea being that if you built up enough points, you could then participate in an auction where I believe an Xbox One was up. Yeah, 2013. Does that track? You could get an Xbox One. So I didn't go out of my, that's not true. I went out of my way, but obviously not as hardcore as some other people did. I made sure to visit all the different sites to look for these different QR codes and to scan them and to get these points. And I thought make a play at the Xbox. I'm sure I wasn't the only one, but when I got to that freaking auction, I was outbid within seconds. Like, did I even bid, actually? No, I think I did. I don't remember how the bidding actually went. I think I got my hand up there to bid, but then it was like the very next bid was thousands more points than I had or whatever it was. And I don't remember what my grand total of points was even at that point. If only I had sat down to talk about this with somebody in front of a camera. I didn't, but I will, is what I'm getting at. But ended up only being able to afford or win auctions for a Mountain Dew hat, Mountain Dew sunglasses, and a Mountain Dew sweatshirt, which I actually still do own to this day and is fairly high quality and will keep you warm. But put it all on and then just continued to tell people to do the do as we went throughout the day. Actually, it was probably still only an hour, maybe two, that we had left in the day because this happened at the end of that day anyways. Might have been at the very end of PAX even, for that matter. Yeah, that would make sense, right? So turned that frown upside down, I guess. But I remember getting in the elevator to go up to our hotel room, and mornings and nights are pretty packed as far as elevators go because everybody's coming and going at the same time for PAX. And got in this full elevator, decked out in my Mountain Dew gear, and it was quiet for at least half the ride until I lowered those shades and told everybody to do the do. And to much applause. Nobody applauded, but I think I don't know if they got the joke, actually. I don't know if I got the joke, but fantastic memory. PAX 2013 went down in history. 2014, I was out to make some capital C content. That is the other year that I made an actual video that you can find in that folder that I put up. And it makes sense because 2014 was also the very same year where, in fact, just 2 months later after PAX, the first episode of Zero Hit Points premiered. So, 10 years ago, I guess we're coming up on. And this was the mostly games focused podcast that I did with Matt Amberg, and loved every second of it. It broke out into a movies focused podcast as well because we couldn't shut up about them. But it's still out there. Like the YouTube channel, the Zero Hit Points YouTube channel morphed into the Book Club for Movies YouTube channel, but the videos are there. You can go back in time and see when the switch happened, pretty much. But I'm willing to bet the site archive isn't doing great. At bookclubformovies.com, we turned it into an archive where you could still go back and look up the Zero Hit Point stuff. I'm betting that's not in great shape at this point. We've migrated the podcast itself, so at best, all the links are going to be broken. So your best bet, if you ever want to check those out, is the Spotify link where it's hosted now, which I'll throw down in the description as well. So 2015 through 2019 was kind of the Zero Hit Points show at PAX for that reason. It became an excuse to do some live video podcasts, which I did also put in those folders. They're still on YouTube, but if you want to just click or even just have them, you want to download them, that's again, one of the reasons I'll probably have to take this down at some point because I didn't ask anybody's permission. But if you want to own any of these things, have at them, as far as I'm concerned. We did shirts. We did 2 runs of shirts, actually, in 2015 and 2016. We did stickers. We did buttons. There's pictures of all these things in there and sometimes how we put them to use. And regrettably, there was one video that never got made. I don't remember how many people I even told about this, but in 2015, you're going to see pictures of Matt essentially with like Major Nelson and some harmonics dudes, Evan from Jackbox Games, Loading Ready Run, Rocco from Mega 64, also just normal people. But we would go up and ask them one question. It was, have you heard of Zero Hit Points? And obviously every single person said no, except for Mike Micah, the absolute saint. I don't know that we had played, or I think even live streamed iDarb like the night before, and I either hashtagged it or I don't think I tagged him directly, but he saw it, he found it. And I remember he did respond to us. So when we asked him if he heard, we were expecting the same no, he said yes, and then like went on for a bit. I really should put these videos up actually, now that I mention it, because he's amazing. And I guess looking back, I feel bad because there were some people, especially at the end of a con, that are like, number one, there for their own stuff and tired, it's a job, like they're working, as fun as it might be. And we come up and shove a camera in their face and like dance monkey or what, I for that reason, I'm a little hesitant, and I feel bad. I ended up not using any of them because the audio was so bad, like it was kind of not salvageable. So I'm like, I don't know if I can make a legible video out of this, but maybe I'll still put you'll know by the time this comes out if they're in there or not. But thank you, and apologies to everyone that helped us out with those, Immortan Joe included. But in the meantime, and this is maybe, skip ahead to this if you don't want to hear me reminisce or ramble for a bit. But again, why are you here? Meanwhile, PAX is changing. I feel like the number one criticism you're going to hear from people that either don't want to think about it or it's just, the word, and has been, for hundreds of years at this point, it was that PAX was corporatizing or selling out, right? And I'll tell you where maybe they have a leg to stand on. Even when I came on, there was still kind of a small town feeling to the show. And I know that sounds ridiculous, like I said, tens of thousands of people, whatever. There were, especially if you went to the panels, there was still this feeling that we were all in it together, like anybody running the panels was in the audience with us for the next one or something like that, and there was kind of cliques and crews, like I said, I got into Giant Bomb a lot, and there were certainly friendships, professional and personal, that would cross over. And I know Matt was enforcing for at least a few of these shows, and there was like a core group of enforcers going on that you would certainly recognize even year to year. And some of them are still there. Hello, Bowser, if you're out there. I still see him every year. But there, as much as I'm doing a poor job of defining it or making it sound like it's not total BS, there was just kind of a smaller feel to it. And the other thing I'll mention is swag. And it's kind of a gross conversation, and people certainly did it in some very gross ways, like running around and asking for, just gobbling up all the free stuff they could find without even looking who was on the other end, all sorts of that stuff. I won't say I didn't participate in some of that. Obviously, I was like, my suitcases would just be full of shirts by the time PAX was over. And there were some companies that I just didn't care. Actually, there was one company that I just didn't care, and it was Ubisoft, because they were handing out the shirts, and then they were like, okay, you got to pre-order the game first to get the shirt, but they didn't care if you canceled it in the hotel room later that night. So I don't feel bad necessarily about getting my free shirt from Ubisoft anyway, but I get that it is a kind of a gross conversation to talk about. Yeah, you used to be able to get free stuff from PAX, and now you can't. Tell you what does suck about it is those bigger companies did figure out that instead they just set up stores now right on the floor. I mean, there's third-party stores as well, but they figured out that they didn't have to give it away, that they could literally just sell it to you instead for, not necessarily a discounted price either. So that's bittersweet or whatever, like that little bit. But I get how you could say, PAX was different or had gone corporate because now the swag situation just isn't what it used to be. So, a layer of engagement was gone. But whatever was happening literally got interrupted by COVID in 2020. Obviously, it shut down. In fact, for some reason, I thought maybe they opened back up. I know they tried probably in 2022, but I don't think they did. Actually, I think 2023 might have been their first year back. And honestly, I didn't know if I was going to get back on the wagon. really. I didn't know if I would. It's a lot of money, and it's only gotten more expensive. I used to, in fact, one of those years you're going to see, I have my key card for the Virginia Mason, so close, because I was scrimping and saving because it was like up a hill. I don't know even know if it's still there. Top of it, so there was like a lot more walking going on just to get to that thing, but it was cheaper than going through the actual PAX site, than trying. Once I started staying with friends, it was easier. We all split the hotel room. So, but nowadays that barely puts a dent in it. And yeah, I'm rolling with a much smaller crew, but it's just always an expensive thing. And I thought for a second I had probably had my time, and didn't regret a second of it. Some of the fondest memories, if you can't tell already, from those shows. I know it's a big ask, but those podcasts, those video podcasts that we did in probably every year, 2014 through 2019, I'm so glad they exist. Like, I know it's a big ask to go and say, check them out, but if you want just a piece, I am very proud of those shows. Even though it looks like I brought the garage with me. Some of those microphone setups, I'm like, why did I must have cared, but did I care? I believe I've twisty tied like a shotgun mic to one of those mic stands at one point. I don't know. But I did. I thought maybe I was done until somebody gingerly asked me, hey, do you want to go to PAX again? I probably didn't take that much convincing. So I did go back in 2023, and I'm not going to go into any detail for 2023, 24, because I did posts on the Patreon. They're public. You can go check them out no matter who you are. So if you want to know what I did those years, it's all up there, and it's, fairly recent memory for that reason. But what I didn't talk about yet in 2024 is kind of where PAX is at now for me. Because it's obviously different, just in general. They finally finished that. For the longest time, there was like a hole in the ground for an entire city block, basically. Year after year, I've, for some reason, didn't know that it was literally the Washington State Convention Center building another. It honestly seems tailor-made for PAX. Like, it is just an amazing building. At one point, somebody in my group, I think it was Dallas actually, was like, how do they air condition this place? And we all just sat there, confused and amazed at how this building could be air conditioned in any way. It's big, right? That cozy feeling is gone necessarily. But I think what they've done with the space is still pretty cool. They've taken up an entire floor just for tabletop now. They've got a game library that you can go and pretty much rent any game you've ever heard of across the years. Play it with your buddies for a while. There's an entire room set up full of tables where board game developers are kind of showcasing their games. They'll shepherd you through some even. It's very, very, very cool. Like, I had never been that drawn to tabletop as much as I have been recently, but I've also, I guess, never playing a lot more board games than ever. So there's a little bit of everything going on there, but it's a great big building that they put to great use. This year they did, in fact, the 2023, they had some of the actual show floor on level 0 of that building. This year they set that apart for some of the tournaments, and Crokinole and Clask were down there, and they put the show floors back in the original building on either side of the Sky Bridge. So still very different. Like, the crowds just aren't the same, whether or not that's because of the increased space. But again, like I said, it's not selling out. They have not returned back to pre-COVID numbers just yet. So that's there. You can go see that from anybody. I was curious where I was going to stand with it, honestly, because again, thinking back to that first 5 minutes after stepping onto that show floor, stepping into the queue room maybe, and figuring out that I was not alone in a way that I maybe hadn't expected. Is that still there? Is that still at PAX? And I do the show way differently than I ever had. You know, I'm waking up when I wake up, pretty much. Staying up. Well, okay, I stay up pretty late doing those Patreon posts, but waking up whenever I feel rested, not waiting in line. You know, it used to be. It also used to be there was like a game of show. You know, there was one game we knew we had to play, and it was usually the one with the longest line. You know, everybody had the same idea, whether it was Evolve or Titanfall or some Borderlands, maybe. So, Monster Hunter World? Is that the World? Wilds? That was the game this year, 2024. It's just not necessarily my game. So I wasn't participating, nothing against it. You know, probably still like to check it out at some point. I know it's very different than what I usually play. So, but wasn't waking up early to get in those lines, to wait in those lines. In fact, I probably waited in line a grand total of like to play games, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Like if even that. And that was for, you know, Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, because that was fairly popular. Everything else was pretty much I walked up and I was ready to go. But here's what has not changed for me, for anybody, honestly. Here's what has not changed about PAX. That thing where you're not alone. Like, numerous times over the course of these last 4 days at PAX, we would just be talking about whatever we were talking about. In fact, it happened on the light rail from the airport to the hotel the day before. So maybe this is just being around people and I'm not around people. I don't know. But everybody's in a conversation. We'll just be talking about something and the guy next to us within earshot will just join in and contribute something or say like, oh yeah, and then this and then whatever it is. And he's just in it. We're just in it. How I've changed is that I used to be, I feel like, the one on the receiving end, which I still was numerous times this year. There were people that joined in and we just started having a discussion. Now I'm the guy that's going to join your conversation is where I'm coming from. Like, if you go and read those posts from this year's PAX, you'll notice that I spent an awful lot of time in the Rock Band room, which is just like, it's nothing like if you go back to, like I said, Boba Fett at Rock Band, whatever that was, 2012, 13, something. It's nothing like that anymore. Like they used to have, you know, and it was when Rock Band was kind of a bigger thing, certainly. But stages set up that were just lines out the door, huge crowds. That's not happening so much anymore. This year, it was just a room kind of off in the big building. And there was a line, but it was a much smaller crowd. And also it was kind of a orphaned, I feel like, event to some extent. Like they had just thrown Rock Band 3 on an Xbox, like vanilla Rock Band 3, no DLC. In past years, it's at least had, you know, next to the whole catalog or whatever. So very different experience, but that's where I'm at. That's where PAX is at for me. Still, like I wouldn't trade obviously any of my previous years, and they're all fantastic again, like for all the reasons I've just been talking about. But was 2024 the best PAX yet? Like close, maybe. Yes. And it's not because, you know, back-to-back panels and I was on the floor and all the games are like whatever. There were some great games though. It's because I was in that room till midnight, you know, until they kicked us out playing Rock Band 3 with other people that were in. I was never alone. Like sometimes it did get down to, you know, 2 or 3 of us, but where there's people staying up till midnight until the gaming convention kicks you out of the gaming room, that's where PAX is. And it's still there. And yeah, it's different. It's not what PAX used to be. It's not how I used to PAX, but it's there. And if you want to be there too, just come find me. I'm sure I will be in the Rock Band room again next year. In fact, no joke, and I did mention this in one of the posts, I put my name in the hat as much as I could anyways. The enforcers that came to close down the place, in fact, they walked into the room just as we hit go on Freebird. So they still had to wait a good 12 minutes until we were done playing that song. But when they started breaking stuff down, I was like, hey, who do I talk to about running this essentially. Like I will bring, I don't care what, like I wouldn't need to bring my own Xbox, but I could put on, you know, all of these tracks that I've been doing, all of these custom tracks that I have downloaded for my, you don't need, you know, and it's offline. If we're going to do Rock Band 3, it's all offline anyways, which is better. I will come with all of these songs people have never seen or heard of for Rock Band 3. I will have that line out the door, and we will make the Rock Band room what it used to be. We won't, but it'll be a better experience. So if you're one of those people, come find me. Till then, thanks for hanging out. As always, you can find me over on the Ryan Runs YouTube channel and on Patreon, just hawking my wares, which are videos. I haven't made as many videos, especially since I feel like I've put the Daily Drum on hiatus, speaking of Rock Band, but still plenty to come, especially now that I'm feeling better. An episode of Cinematic, I won't ruin it, tell you what it's about, but that should be coming up. If not, oh gosh, it's Saturday night. It'll be next week, but maybe I record it tonight. We'll see. And much more. And I couldn't make it happen without my patrons. If you want to be one of them, just go to patreon.com/Ryan_runs_, or there's a PayPal link not too far either. If a one-time donation is something that sounds more doable to you, turn it into a tip jar. It helps me do more of this. So, till then, see you guys.